week 16's here. And if you need some lineup help or anything, just comment in the comment section below for my videos. But here's a few kickers you should drop heading into week 16. The first one's Matt Prater, the Detroit Lions. He's owned in way too many fantasy leagues, still at 49% owned. He hasn't had a double-digit fantasy game since week 10, and now he's got another tough matchup versus Tampa Bay. Here is Matt Prater, who gives up the ninth least amount of fantasy points to kickers. Prater, I don't think he'll have a great game again this week. He's been inconsistent, and there's so many better options on the waiver wire, and these guys are owned in less leagues. So Matt Prater, I think he's an easy kicker to get away from this week. Especially, he's been struggling, like I said, and he hasn't hit double digits since week 10, and before that it was week 7. So Matt Prater owned in way too many fantasy leagues, and he's a kicker I would drop. The second kicker to drop this week's Ryan Succop in the same matchup. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Succop the last few weeks, he's been bad for fantasy owners, and he hasn't really done much, topping out at 6 or 7 fantasy points, and the last time he reached double digits was in week 10, and here in week 16 he's got a tough matchup, believe it or not, versus the Detroit Lions that give up the second least amount of fantasy points to kickers. That's because a lot of teams, they just find the end zone versus Detroit, and they don't settle for field goals. And this week I think it's more the same here for this Tampa Bay offense, where they're going to find the end zone early and often versus Detroit, and Ryan Succop's not going to get opportunities to kick a field goal. So I would drop Succop. And the third and final kicker I would drop this week, I don't know how he's still owned in 30% of fantasy leagues, is Dan Bailey of the Minnesota Vikings. Bailey 2 weeks ago, he missed 4 field goals and 2 extra points or whatever it was versus Tampa. Last week he bounced back with a pretty decent fantasy game with 9 fantasy points, but I still can't trust him here in a big spot. He's at New Orleans. That's going to be a tough game. New Orleans gives up the 12th most fantasy points to kickers, which is not bad, but I just can't trust him. This game's on Christmas Day, so a Friday ball game we got here. That's a nice little treat. But Dan Bailey, I can't trust him. He misses a lot of field goals, and he's not going to get you the 50-plus ones either. His range is up to like 45, from 45 is Dan Bailey at field goals. So Dan Bailey, he's easy to get away from, and there's better options on the wire. So that's a few kickers I would drop here heading into week 16.